I really enjoy the opportunity to present our outstanding faculty to the board. And today I think you'll find a particularly timely presentation. Dr. Kimberly Dodd joined the College of Veterinary Medicine in September 2021 as Director of the Veterinary Diagnostic Laboratory and Associate Professor in the Department of Pathobiology and Diagnostic Investigation. She comes from MSU to MSU from the USDA, where she served as the director of the Foreign Animal Disease Diagnostic Laboratory on Plum Island, New York. That's the international reference laboratory for the highest consequence animal diseases, including foot and mouth disease and African swine fever. Prior to her service at FADDL, she was a senior scientist at Metabiota, a company dedicated to enhancing laboratory and surveillance capacity globally to prepare, prevent, and respond to disease outbreaks. Kim worked in Central and West Africa to facilitate collaborations with international agencies and African governments, and served as a program director for the CDC Global Health Security Agenda. She also served as a guest researcher in the Viral Special Pathogens Branch at CDC, where she led studies to better understand how hemorrhagic fever viruses such as Ebola, Lassa, and Crimean-Congo fevers cause severe disease and death, with the goal of producing better methods to prevent and respond to outbreaks of these very devastating diseases. She has developed and patented a novel vaccine for Rift Valley fever, and during her time at CDC, she played an active role in the CDC field laboratory responses to filovirus outbreaks, most recently for the West African Ebola outbreak in 2014. Her professional interests include development of rapid detection methods for emerging and divergent viruses, and the VDL has played an important part in the early days of the response to the pandemic. Kim received her DVM and PhD in comparative pathology from the University of California at Davis. She has been a member of the USDA Animal and Plant Health Inspection Services Science Committee and is recognized as an international expert in infectious disease research. She's earned numerous awards for her work as a scientist and leader, including the UC Davis Young Alumna Award, USDA Undersecretary Award for her efforts to develop a national animal vaccine stockpile, USDA Administrator's Award for leading the efforts to protect the U.S. from an outbreak of African swine fever, and the U.S. State Department Meritorious Services Award for her work in West Africa. So please welcome Dr. Kimberly Dodd.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for the wonderful introduction, and thank you for the invitation to be here today to tell you a little bit about the Veterinary Diagnostic Laboratory, or the VDL, both about our current mission as well as a vision for the future that sees the VDL as a leader in One Health initiatives to support both animal and public health. As a new addition to MSU, I've been here since September 1st. I'd like to start with a little bit of background. As Dr. Gage just noted, I'm a veterinarian and a virologist and spent several years at CDC working with high-consequence pathogens like Ebola on everything from vaccine development to outbreak response. It was working and performing diagnostic tests in situations such as this that I really appreciated the need for stronger laboratory capacity in high-risk areas and spent several years working in Central and West Africa. I then became director of USDA's National and International Reference Laboratory for High-Consequence Animal Diseases. It was there, and in the context of the COVID pandemic, that I appreciated the potential for academic veterinary diagnostic laboratories, like our own VDL, to serve as leaders in One Health. So I'm thrilled to be here, both to be leading a laboratory that runs 1 million tests a year, as well as to be part of a larger university community with such a commitment to global impact, innovation, and interdisciplinary science. The mission at the VDL is fairly straightforward: to protect animal and public health in Michigan and beyond, relying heavily on the expertise of our 135 faculty and staff. To continually investigate ways to enhance our capabilities to meet the evolving needs of the day. To educate veterinarians, veterinary scientists, veterinary students, and laboratorians to build up the next generation of diagnosticians. And finally, to build lasting and impactful collaborations within academia and with government and industry to ensure that we're meeting the needs of veterinarians, producers, farmers, and pet owners. Our laboratory was established in the mid-70s to protect and promote Michigan animal agriculture. That's still core to our mission, as is working closely with the college's clinicians at the Veterinary Medical Center to ensure we're providing the best in patient care. But over the last few decades, our mission has continued to expand, and today 60% of our business comes from out of state. This is driven largely by our world-renowned endocrinology service that provides testing for animals in more than 25 countries for everything from thyroid disorders to diabetes. We also have a robust cancer diagnostics team and extensive expertise in infectious diseases. In fact, the VDL houses a Biosafety Level 3, or BSL-3 facility. These additional safeguards allow us to work with the highest consequence animal diseases, as well as zoonotic diseases, or those that can be transmitted from animals to people. We had an opportunity in 2020 to demonstrate those capabilities, as well as our ability to rapidly stand up high-throughput testing when we were asked to support COVID testing for both animals and people. And more recently, we received funding from MDHHS in a cross-university collaboration with the two medical colleges and the College of Natural Science to learn a bit more about the emergence of COVID variants. It's a great example of a One Health approach. For those of you who may be less familiar, One Health at its simplest is a multidisciplinary collaborative approach to address the challenges we face today in animal, human, and environmental health. It brings in experts from across disciplines, human and veterinary medicine, of course, environmental and biological sciences, but also ecology, epidemiology, political science, public health, sociology, and so many more. And together, these experts address challenges at these interfaces. Zoonotic diseases are a great example. Today, we know that the vast majority of new human infections arise from an animal reservoir. Similarly, a One Health approach allows a platform for translational science, allowing us to share lessons learned across disciplines. Now, veterinary medicine has always had a seat at the table for One Health discussions. But I'd argue that we've never yet fully harnessed the potential of a veterinary diagnostic lab like the MSU VDL to help lead these initiatives. So let me give you an example. Today, and this is true in both human and veterinary medicine, we still rely heavily on disease-specific tests. That is, samples come into the laboratory, we run multiple tests on them to rule in or rule out potential causes of disease. This is great. The tests are sensitive and specific, but it's both time and resource intensive to perform multiple tests. And critically, we need to know exactly what we're looking for. If we don't look for it, we won't find it. So it's really exciting that in the last few years, we have seen rapid advancements in our laboratory capabilities. So much so that, at least in theory, we could run a single test and detect any potential disease-causing agent within that sample. So next-generation sequencing for infectious agents is a great example. We can sequence the entire contents of a sample, and that would include any potential infectious agents in there. The challenge now is the data part of it, because essentially we need to sift through all of that sequence data, kind of like looking for a needle in a haystack, looking to see if we see sequence data that matches any known pathogens. So again, it's a time-consuming process, and we have to know exactly what we're looking for. What's really exciting is that as our laboratory capabilities have evolved, so too have our abilities with data management and data analysis. We've all heard a lot about artificial intelligence and machine learning in the last few years. What if we could harness the same technologies that allows facial recognition on our phones to perform sequence recognition on a sample? That is to detect any potential infectious agent in that sample that we know about, that's already been established, as well as to identify any potential emerging diseases as well before it emerges. So to detect the quote-unquote disease X before it can emerge and cause the next pandemic. And to take it a step further, An approach like this is cross-disciplinary and disease agnostic. So as we just said, we could use it to detect known pathogens or to identify disease X before it emerges. But we could also use it to learn more about genetic diseases and antimicrobial resistance, and to inform cancer diagnosis and prognosis. And just like the pipeline itself is disease agnostic, so too is the input. It would work as well on samples from dogs as deer, from cows as cats, and importantly, not just for veterinary medicine, but for human and environmental health as well, allowing us to take a truly One Health approach for diagnostics. And the MSU VDL, with the hundreds of thousands of samples that come through our doors every day, coupled with our extensive expertise within our faculty and staff and access to a BSL-3 laboratory, is uniquely positioned to facilitate such an effort. Now, we can't do it alone. It requires a truly cross-disciplinary effort in alignment with the MSU strategic plan and with an emphasis on innovation for global impact. And so we've been so excited to already have so much engagement across colleges on One Health initiatives. In fact, just this week, we heard that a proposal that the College of Veterinary Medicine led in collaboration with 5 other colleges was selected as one of the provost's inaugural 1855 professorships. This professorship will support teaching, outreach, and education to support transdisciplinary efforts to mitigate One Health disparities. So it's an exciting time in One Health. And I can tell you it's a really exciting time to be a part of a veterinary diagnostic laboratory. I look forward to building collaborations across campus and seeing what we can achieve together as a team. And with that, I'd like to thank you for your time and your attention. I'd like to give a huge shout out to the faculty and staff of the VDL, and I'd be happy to take any questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Questions for Dr. Dodd? So obviously for me, this work is particularly exciting. And at the Midwest Regional Center of Excellence, which I directed, one of our goals was actually to develop this kind of pan-sequencing approach essentially for the diagnosis, particularly detection of new pathogens. So it's really exciting to see that we're getting closer to it. What would you say are the gaps right now? If you take a look at MSU, and I know you've just been here since September, and I always like to have people say positive things about MSU, but what are the gaps that you might see in terms of where we need to build better, or at least for your collaborations? In other words, in AI, data, what are the things you see that there might be holes? And if there's none, then how do we harness what we have and make sure that we're pulling together on it?
Sure, that's a great question. As you noted, I'm 3.5 months in, and I've been able to have some great conversations with colleagues across colleges. And I sense that the capabilities are there. The question is bringing everybody to the table and to start working on these initiatives. And so again, it's why I'm really grateful to have the opportunity to be here and kind of to have a public platform to start talking about this and hopefully to draw out colleagues from across campus to work on these efforts. So to be honest, I don't have a great answer to your question. I'm sorry, President Stanley.
I think that's a great answer. Being here since September is a great answer. I think it's just, again, as you pointed out, the ability to kind of harness the College of Veterinary Medicine and the VDL in this One Health approach. And we care so much about health disparities, but there's so much we need to do in public health and disease as well. And I think it really is the point you said, is that the major epidemics that have plagued the world over the past 50 years have been zoonoses, basically. And that includes HIV, essentially, which was derived from animals as well. So this is really a major problem. And getting on top of this and finding ways to identify what those future pathogens might be just by monitoring diseases within the animal population is a huge beacon potentially for us and warning that we could use in the future going forward. So it's very important work. Thank you. Plum Island's an amazing place. Decommissioned, I guess, at this point in time. Still some activity. But again, really appreciate and glad you're at MSU, and thank you for the contributions you're making. So thank you. No other questions?
I would just echo that. I have had the opportunity to interact with Dr. Dodd a couple of times. I toured the VDL with a couple of young students, and so her energy and excitement about the work she does is infectious.
Great.
And then just last week, and you can tell, good pun, play on words. But just last week, you interacted with the agribusiness community at their breakfast, so it was sponsored by the VDL, and so she's also very interactive in her presentations, and so she really engages in the audience, and I couldn't be happier to have you at Michigan State, so thank you.
Thank you again.
Thank
Thank
you.
you again.